Welcome, everybody, to Nomadic Diaries. I'm your host, Doreen Cumberford, and with me today I have our co-host in the Belonging Project, Megan Norton Newbanks. Say hi, Megan.
Hi. Hi, Megan. Just kidding.
Hi,
Hi,
Megan.
Doreen.
Good
Hi,
morning.
everyone.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Today it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Erin Meyer-Cherneux. Now, Erin is an author, an artist, and she weaves together all of her interests in World War II history, cultural anthropology, with visual and spoken arts. She's the author of D-Day Lessons for Today, How to Create Your Future History, and started writing that after we met at a coaching course we both participated in. So her book blends a combination of history, memoir, self-help with pictures. It's very, very visual. With her Belgian husband, Erin has raised four bilingual and multicultural children, and she describes Brussels as her heartbeat. She is married to her Belgian husband, but is originally from Texas. Please help me welcome Erin. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Doreen. Hi, Megan. So nice
Hi,
to see
Erin.
you and be on this podcast with you today.
Yeah, the last time I saw you, we were in person in Brussels.
We were. I can't remember which year that was, but I do remember the year we met.
2019.
When was it?
2019.
Okay. And it was 2010, no, 2011 when we met because I was pregnant with my fourth, who was born at the end of 2011. So
Exactly. Exactly.
it's been a long
Incredible.
time.
Yeah, pre-COVID.
Oh, well
Pre-COVID.
before COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, welcome, Erin. For our listeners, I want to describe the plethora of colors that I am seeing on Erin, around Erin. It's vibrant, very bold colors, and I'm just curious, Erin, do you have a favorite color out of all the colors I'm seeing on my screen with you and around you and on you?
Blue, definitely.
Why is that?
Um, I don't know, but ever since I was a kid, the shade of royal blue is really my most favorite color. I like lots of different shades of blue, but as you can see, my walls are painted
Yes.
blue, and the entire living room, this entire room is painted this. And when I wanted to, people kept saying, "That's going to be too dark. You can't do that." But I find it so peaceful, and every house I've lived in, I have painted the walls blue. It's yeah.
I
Pink
love
comes
that.
in a quick second, but blue is definitely my favorite.
Yes, it's so joyful to see you in your home and to meet you. Also, I'd love to orient the listeners to more of your story. Can you share a little bit of your journey from Texas to Brussels and any of the highlights along the way?
So I grew up in Texas, and I always say that, the biggest move I had made up until the age of 18 was from one end of our two-bedroom house to the other. It was small town. I lived outside the small town um, near San Antonio in the Texas Hill Country. And my mother uh, taught French and Spanish and always told me about all the travels she had done around the world. My grandmother had traveled around the world twice in her lifetime. And so travel was always something I was encouraged to do. And when I was 16, there was an exchange student from Belgium in my high school, and he lived at my neighbors, and I would drive him to school. We became really good friends, and he convinced me to go to Belgium to learn French instead of going to Spain. I was studying Spanish and thinking I was going to go to Spain. And he said, "Go to Belgium, it'll be so fun." And so he went home. I had my senior year, and then I showed up in Belgium, and I was in another town, And I called him up and he was like, great, come to my house this weekend. We'll go out and I'll show you around. You can stay in my sister's room. And on that first day, I fell in love with his older brother.
Oh
So,
my
so we dated that whole year that I was there as an exchange student. He's 4 years older than me, so he was already starting to work. And then I went back to Texas to go to the University of Texas in Austin, where I got my bachelor's degree. And I promptly got a job so that I could pay for um, flights to go back, once a year to Belgium and Europe. And then I got another scholarship after I did my BA and I chose to came back to Belgium, and I've been here ever since. So that was 1990. The first time I came over was in 1990, and then the second time I came back was 1995 that I moved back. And yeah, I've been here ever since. We got married in 97, and
I love
And how
that.
many children do you have?
we have 4 kids, 24, 22, 16, and 13. So,
I love a good love story. That is wonderful. And I feel like Hallmark needs to make a movie out of that. Um, because
Wait till you
I
hear the rest.
know oh wow. Yeah. So you found a heartthrob in your heartbeat city.
I say that because, yeah, the first half of that is Belgium is my heartbeat and Normandy is my soul's sigh. And we have a home in Normandy, and Normandy is very close to my heart. I wrote the book about D-Day, but also I wrote the book because Normandy is so close to me. And I've spent so much of my life there. Um, I don't, when you travel a lot there, you experience, or for me, I definitely experience connections with places. Um, and when I first came to Belgium, there was something that I was like, you know what? I think maybe I've lived here before, or, in another lifetime. I had a connection with the country, with the, that I couldn't really explain. And I still don't really explain, but and sometimes I don't feel like I need to. It's just, I have a connection with the land and the geography and the place, and that goes beyond something that words can say. And so when I left, and then I had to decide if I was coming back or not, because Didi and I had actually broken up kind of at the end of my university studies, and I was deciding which I had received a scholarship to study in a French-speaking university, and I was looking at like 5 or 6 different universities in different cities around Europe. And Brussels was the last place I was coming to visit that summer to kind of make some decisions. And the minute the train started to pull into the city, I was like, oh yeah, I have unfinished business here. I need to be here. So, not knowing why, I guess it's just an instinct that I had, but yeah.
And it seems to me that we met during the coaching training for the Life Mastery Program. And it seems like one of the things we were studying, I think that you and I studied together, were the 6 mental faculties, of which intuition is one of them, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I have watched you over the years, become a coach, write the book, revive your art, and just do more and more and more. And I'm wondering how much of that is a natural drive that just comes from knowing that you are exactly where you belong.
Um, yeah. I, I, you know, that when you say that you know exactly where you belong, it feels like there's like a lot of confidence in that,
Yes.
which I don't know that I have all the time. Um, Maybe I do, and maybe because I'm in the place where I should be or where I'm comfortable, I'm able to question that more, because I know that, I mean, I've certainly been to other cities. I'm like, wow, this is great, but I could never live here. I couldn't stay here for a long period of time. Paris is one of those places. I've spent
Yes.
lots of time in Paris, but after like 5 days, no, can't do that. And I think that we have different times and periods in our lives where we want to be somewhere. I mean, when I went to Austin, I was very drawn to Austin, and I knew that that was the place that I needed to be at that time. But now
Yes.
when I go back, I mean, I'm really happy to go back and spend a few days or a week there. But then I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, this isn't my place anymore. And I think after so many years in Brussels, I'm opening the idea of being somewhere else. I mean, we now have a home in Normandy, and the idea is to spend more time there once my husband retires and the kids have graduated. Um, but I think we'll always keep a place in Brussels. Um, yeah, but I definitely I live my life through a sense of I have to do this because I'm there's something in me that's pushing me, and it's not based off of kind of a logical uh,
Yes. Yeah.
reflection. I went back and I started painting when I was writing my book because I had had this really
Yes.
important experience at the Jewish Museum in Moscow, seeing a Gerhard Richter exhibit, and I was standing in front of this painting, and my whole body was just vibrating and going, "You need to do this." And I'm thinking, "What? How am I going to paint like a 2 meter by 2 meter massive painting? Like that doesn't. I can't." And but it was so strong that I was like, you know what? I need to listen to this. I need to explore this. And most recently, so a couple weeks ago, I swam across the Bosphorus in
Yes.
Istanbul.
She
And
swam, she swam across the Bosphorus, yes.
yeah, so
As
from
you do on a weekend, right?
from Asia, it's this amazing race that happens. It's been going on for 37 years, and you swim from the Asian side to the European side, and it's the symbolism of being in the water. So I'm a swimmer, and I picked up open water swimming, long distance swimming in the last kind of year, I guess, is really that I've really started training seriously for it. But being in that city, and I had gone last year, and it was so amazing. And being back this time for a week on my own, now I'm preparing a retreat to take people next year because there's something in me. It's like I really have to do this, and it's almost the same thing with you know. I mean, I live in Brussels. Brussels has over like it's a huge amount of expats and people from all over the world. And my kids go to a European school. I mean, to an international school. My husband works with the European Union, so we live in this, very multicultural, diverse group of people
Bubble.
who are
Yeah.
always moving around, right?
Yes.
You know this.
Transition. There's nothing stays the same.
Nothing stays the same.
Everybody around you is moving in or moving out or going to a new place,
Yes. But
but
when I
you have
meet
stayed.
somebody that I'm like, oh, you're really interesting and I want to spend time with you, I give it my all. I mean, I'm like, okay, we've got, 6 months or we've got 3 years, who knows, or we're not sure because ultimately none of us ever know how much time we have in our lives anyway. I'm like, great, you're cool. I want to spend time with you. And I really, take advantage of the time we have. And I'm sad when they go. And, over the last few years and even this past summer, I had quite a few friends move. And there's always this kind of period of readjustment when September comes around and you go, oh yeah, all my friends are gone. And my kids go through this every year as well. But I don't
Yeah.
know. It's maybe it's this instinctive side of me. It's like, well, I meet people and they're even when I meet people that are going to be moving within a few months of the time that we actually meet. And they're like, "Do you really want to spend time with me? I'm moving." I'm like, "Of course I want to spend time with you. Why not?" And of course, then
Yeah.
you make friends who then move to other places in the world, and so you always have somebody to visit when you go somewhere.
Exactly. Well, I just want to point out that I believe that this is the practice of belonging.
Yeah,
We make a decision and we choose where we're going to put our energy, where we're going to put our love, where we're going to put our intention.
yeah,
And you consciously do it. And I know that many people in the communities that Megan and I work in and speak to all the time would choose something different. They would choose to protect themselves. They would choose to, oh, I'm not going to invest my love for 6 months.
Mhm.
But you're making a different choice because I think you're seeing the possibility of a different outcome.
Oh yeah, I mean, thank goodness for WhatsApp. I talk regularly with friends all over the world, and it's, I just, um, I think again, I think, well, I'm just so lucky to be given the time that I have with these people, and I want to make the most of it. And I'm, I'm one of those people that, uh, I don't want to say out of sight, out of mind, but I can get really involved in what's kind of in front of me and not connect sometimes with people. But when I connect with them again, it's as if we never really disconnected, even though years can go by.
Sure.
Maybe sometimes it's not that long. But I don't know. I guess that's maybe part of my personality. But um, I guess I just fascinated by people and always so thrilled they want to spend time with me and do stuff. So
There you go.
Erin, I think you're such a gift to people who have the high transitory life because I think you're not the majority. I think it's the minority. And I wonder if it's because you are quote unquote rooted there that you are reaching out and embracing people who might be in a revolving door. And so I want to just acknowledge that and affirm that that's a real gift. And um, even in my own life, growing up, there was this cycle of I was the new kid or the staying kid or the leaving kid. That was like the 3 year increment of, um, I knew who I was. I was the new kid. And then the middle year, the staying kid. And then the third year, I was going to be the leaving kid. And I'm curious then with your own children, that you're raising in Brussels. How does it impact them to have their friends move in this cyclical way? And do you find that your modeling is something that they also step into and really reach out to the new kid?
yeah, I hope so. It's definitely been hard for them growing up. Their father is Belgian. I'm American. I'm also Belgian now, but it's I'll always not be fully Belgian.
Of course.
That's just the way
Of
it is.
course.
And now I will never be fully American. That's just the way it is. And you know, they go visit their Belgian cousins and Belgian family and feel very un-Belgian. And then they go to an American family who's, at school, they go to their American family house and feel very un-American. So, I think that identity and a sense of belonging is really, it's very subjective to who you're, who's standing across from you. It's built on a relationship. And I realized, I think when I was doing my master's here in Belgium in cultural anthropology and I really kind of focused on women's issues and multicultural identity. And I realized that where I felt I belonged was with other people who don't belong. So, other expats, other people who were here kind of long term, but were definitely not Belgian. Um, and I recently had a conversation with my daughter, my eldest, who, grew up here in an international school and then went to the UK for university and is actually working there for the moment, but she wants to go to Japan. And, she says, yeah, I just, I really want to get to know that culture and feel like I belong there. And I was like, mm-mm. You're never going to feel like you belong there because you never will. I was like, you will always be an outsider in another culture. And actually, you will always be an outsider wherever you are because she's not fully Belgian. She's not fully American. And I said, you have to kind of, I mean, whether you want to or not, that's the reality. Now, you can make it, the best thing, and or not. You can, struggle with that your entire life, I guess, if you choose to. But the way I see it is that you can pick and choose the best of the different worlds that you live in, and somehow there's this wonderful, I don't know, you kind of get a free pass. Oh, I didn't know. or I'm sorry, or oh, I don't do things that way, and somehow you're not held to the same um, social standards
Yes.
necessarily. People are more forgiving. Um, and if it's something that even a mistake you make, but it's intentional because you just really don't want to follow that social norm or code, they tend to kind of, as long as you're not doing something that's derogatory or something that's insulting to them or their culture, they tend to kind of let you, do your own thing. And personally, I like that a lot. But, as far as friends go, I always say to my kids, when some friends move away, it's the opportunity for you to make closer friends with someone else. Maybe it's someone you already know, but you just have never had a whole lot of time to spend with them. Or maybe there are, new people moving into the community that you're going to meet. And so ever since they were young, I've always tried to get them excited about that. Help them, and help them grieve or just, mourn the fact that they're losing those close friends, but also to say, hey, remember, especially in those first weeks of school, um, go talk to the new kids, check in with them, see how they're doing, because you know how it feels, to be the outsider. And even if they've been in that one school for a long time, they know what it feels like to be different because they have that with their Belgian family, or they have that with, so yeah, I hope that I model that for them. And I think that they see me always going out and, you know, meeting new people that,
Yeah, so you're practicing the practice of belonging and you're modeling the practice of belonging. So
yeah, but I think that, yeah, I guess so. I mean,
you
the
are.
notion of belonging, to me, it feels like it's belonging to yourself,
Yes.
you know, and being good, and being good with that. That it's
Yes.
that, and I guess that's also maybe part of why I pursue the things that I pursue, because they're really important to me. And if I don't do that, then I don't belong to myself.
Yes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love that. I have watched you with the coaching and the book and the art and now the swimming. And you apply, 100% focus. Okay. And when we think about the word belonging, it's a combination of being and longing. And longing, as we used to talk about, was what is it that pulls us? What is moving us forward? What is that magic invisible force that very few of us can articulate or describe and even interact with? But I see you as a person who has modeled this for your kids all these years because you see the possibilities. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's really hard for not everyone can see those possibilities. Would you agree with that, Megan?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And something else that's coming up for me is that, Erin, you do respond to what your body is inspired by, or that is you're interested in. You're not defined by this is my lane and I'm going to stick with it. And I think you're also modeling that as interests change or as you're exposed to different things, your belonging can be to different hobbies or creative expressions. And you even said you were inspired by an art exhibit. And yeah, I'd really love for you to share more about the inspiration for your book.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So my book I wrote, well, so my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's degree at the University of Texas was a degree in the humanities department, which basically let me design my own degree. So I combined courses in history and government and French culture, geography, uh, English literature, but it was all the theme going through all of it was World War II in European studies, um, and I wrote my thesis on the veterans of the Battle of the Bulge and representation of that battle 50 years later, because this was 1994, 1993, 1994. And I had also participated in a program at the time. It was called the Normandy Scholar Program. Actually, it still exists under that name at the University of Texas, where we studied about World War II all semester, and then they took us to Europe. They took us to France for 3 weeks. Now the program has a broader scope when they travel. But yeah, so I spent basically 2 years with all these World War II veterans who were in their 70s and 80s, and I was in my early 20s. You know, I was the age they had been during the war, and I was just really fascinated by their stories and perspectives, and really interested as well in what the effect of those memories and those events in their lives had over the course of their lives, and the way that they looked back on that past. And so, as I said earlier, my family, we have gone to Normandy on vacation for many, many years. And when my eldest was, maybe probably 11 or 12 years old and old enough to climb off a tank and kind of go, what happened here? This
Yeah.
isn't a jungle gym. What am I climbing on? What is this? And I
Yeah.
started to think, yeah, what do I want my kids to know about this moment in history and this location and this space? And more importantly, what difference will it make in their lives that they know anything about this history? So then the next question, the most logical question was, well, what difference has it made in my life that I know all this? Because I was now in my 40s, and it had been 20 years since I had spent all this time with these veterans, and I had continued to have a connection, but not a lot. And this was around the time that Doreen, you and I, had gone through this
Yes. Training.
training, and it really, I saw a lot of parallels, but of just kind of like life lessons, and so I wrote my book about Normandy. It's called D-Day Lessons for Today: How to Create Your Future History. And the idea is kind of like, well, how do you face a situation that seems impossible and actually make it happen? And when I was working on it, it took me, I think, almost 5 years to write it,
Yeah.
because I did have like a newborn,
Yes.
1 year old when it
And
started,
three other kids.
and a
And 3 other
3 year old.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and and I did it all. And as I said, yeah, as you said, Doreen, it's all with pictures. It's a very
Yes.
graphic book. And I taught myself InDesign and did all the layout because it was too complicated to try to explain my idea to somebody else. I was like, I just need to be able to do these skills and understand it. And so I got to work with a designer to do that. And it was put up at Juno Beach on one day, and then taken down the next day, and moved over to Utah Beach for the next day. Yeah, it
Amazing.
was really cool.
Amazing. And do you think that for people who participated in that gave them sort of a sense of what it might feel to belong to that period of history? Because I think that sometimes it's easy to correlate belonging with a place.
Hmm.
But I think it's also important to correlate belonging with history. And we're seeing that now as it sort of unravels a little bit in the US because not all the generations have the visceral reaction to what happened in World War II.
Hmm.
They don't carry that reaction in their bodies somatically. They
Yeah,
just they have a different experience now.
I think that probably what, without knowing it, but I mean, to put it in those terms, I was
Yes,
probably trying
Jane.
to um, help people understand or belong or grasp that we all belong to the same human experience, no matter what moment in history we're living through. And
Yes.
so, because that was the idea that I was like, well, what difference is it going to make in my lives, in the lives of my children, that they know what happened, 75 years ago? And so I had felt such a strong connection with these veterans because I was the age they had been when they had lived those experiences. So at the time I was learning about it, I was like, oh, that could have been my life. And I kept kind of superposing things.
Yes.
So what I really wanted to do with the book was to bring the history alive in a way that people could relate or superimpose their own current challenges or struggles and understand that the way that these veterans faced the challenges that they were living in the past is something that you can also apply in your own life today. And it's not that you're in a war, but
Mm.
it's part of the human experience, and there are different degrees, obviously, of what's going on. But we're all faced with situations that seem impossible, and how do we go about doing it? Yeah.
Mm. And so, do you have, as it relates to that, do you have something that you would offer to the listeners who are constantly moving their families, moving their children, new schools? They're just in the churn of corporate or missionary or diplomatic lifestyles. Do you have something that you feel like your book would help them to understand or just to open the door to an idea?
I don't think I talk about it in my book, but I think that um, with the theme of what we're talking about today, the idea of belonging is that, we all belong to the human race,
Yes.
and that no matter what language we speak or the accent we have or the color of our skin or the clothes we wear, all those things are exterior and superficial. And when we connect with someone, we really understand that we're both human, and we both, we have the same, we have similar desires expressed in different ways, and that diversity of expression is what makes the world so rich and colorful and wonderful. I mean, that's why I love color, right? And and bring it into my art all the time, because I believe in the richness of diversity of thought, of ways of doing things. And that I think to recognize the chance that someone has to be able to travel, to be able to live in a culture and really get to know other places and see other ways of being in the world. Because the more you see, the more you get to question your own way of being or seeing the world. And then you have the opportunity to maybe adapt to something else, to see things in a different way that makes life better or easier for you, that you had never thought of because you had never seen or experienced something that was a little different. And so it's
Yeah.
not easy. It's definitely not easy. And I always, I'm very empathetic, and I understand, and I remember so much, the things that I went through to adapt in Belgium and to adapt to a language and a culture. I mean, and to marry someone from another culture and adapt to raising kids with in-laws that didn't see the way that I wanted to, that I would, the things I was doing that were so different, you know, um, and you kind of build a resilience to that. But yeah, I think that I think overall it's a very rich thing to be able
Mm.
to move around and to experience that diversity. So
And I remember sitting on the trams in Brussels. We were there for a month, Megan. We did a pet sit in Brussels. Great big Australian shepherd who was like 10 months old, and I took him to the park, and there was an African choir in the park.
Oh,
And
wow.
they, and they were singing their songs, and suddenly the dog was off leash and he ran up and the whole choir scattered. They were terrified of dogs. I mean, you talk about a cultural put your foot in your mouth. It, it was, oh, I just remember that. So, but thinking about Brussels, I just remember it as having an international energy, of feeling like I was in the womb of the globe, as if it was full of beings and individuals who were so different, being on those trams with the women wearing Ghanaian clothes and clothes from all over Ethiopia, Sudan, and all the countries that I don't have much connection to normally.
Yeah.
I I found that environment invited me into a sense of belonging to the human race at a very connected and deep level.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I when I was studying anthropology, I went to my professor to ask him something, and he had recommended that I read. I was reading a book by Amin Malouf, um, and it's about Lebanon, and I don't know what he said, but he was like, or maybe I said, I've never read a book about the Middle East. I don't know anything about the Middle East, and he looked at me like I was so foreign, and I said, well, I grew up in Texas. I know a lot about like Mexican culture and
Yes,
and he and that seemed foreign to him, and I realized, okay, and yeah, a lot of my professors, they all worked in the Belgian Congo as a former Belgian colony, and so they were really focused on Central Africa, and I was like, I want to go study, Western expats living in Brussels like me, and
right,
yeah, they
right.
didn't. Yeah, but it was really interesting, even at that level of cultural anthropology. That even within that, they could tend to stay kind of in a certain perspective of things that I was bringing something different into.
Yeah, yeah. So, Megan, do you have a question? If not, I do.
I have more just reflections and observations about how I think what what we're getting at in this conversation is the importance of recognizing shared humanity. That yes, we are unique human beings, but on the spectrum of unique and likeness, let's not get stuck at one
Mhm.
pole. That we can slide along, understanding shared humanity. And two is the curiosity for story and for understanding. I think I'm still stuck with the visual of your display of photos and written text on the beaches, and the sense of wondering what are behind those images, those faces, what are the stories of those individuals. And I think that's a lesson we can take in our own cities of suspending judgment and being curious. And
Yeah,
so I think those are really lifelong lessons that we have to practice, but you're definitely modeling that.
I like I said, I just recently spent some time in Turkey, and I had this reflection because I don't necessarily agree with the political leaders of the country and their policies. And there was a point where I thought, well, should I go participate in this race because I don't, you know, I don't agree with the
Hmm.
political leaders of the country. And I asked a friend who was there, and they said, "Oh, you should absolutely go." And I thought, okay. And as I went, I had such a great time, and the connections I made on the ground, one on one with people was so wonderful and enriching. And the Turkish people are so welcoming and accommodating and helpful. And I mean, it was, I thought to myself, what a shame if I had kept myself from coming to this country because of that. And I mean, I had the same feelings when I went to Russia. Well, this was all before COVID, but I had the opportunity to work in Russia for with the Council of Europe on a program of learning and remembrance of World War II, and I got to go twice with them, and then once on my own just before COVID. But I made so many friends, and I found it so fascinating, having grown up in the United States during the Cold War. Being taught a specific narrative of what life in the Soviet Union was like, what Russian people are like, and to be able to go there myself and realize that everyone I met was so welcoming and wonderful and nice and interested, and it was such an interesting conversation I had when I walked into the hotel of uh, of this conference that I was going to participate in, and I met an Afghani man who lived in Sweden. He had applied for political asylum and was living in Sweden. And he said, and I had just arrived in Moscow, and we were talking. I was saying everyone is so nice and it's so great. And he said, yeah, I had the same experience going to the United States because he had been in the States
Yes.
on some type of exchange program. And he said, everybody was so nice and it was so wonderful and it was so different from everything I had been taught growing up in Afghanistan about the United States. And I was just like, yeah, exactly. It was such a great experience. So, I think when I hear people make comments, stereotypical comments about, oh, people from this culture are that way, or people who are from that country believe or think this way or that way. Oh, all you Americans are this way, or and I always kind of stop and say, hey, we're all individuals, and not everybody in the country believes in the political believes the same thing that the political leaders of the country do, and you can't judge people by their passport or by their external appearance. You have to really take everybody as a one-on-one individual. And you know there are wonderful people in every country, and there are horrible people in every country.
Mm.
And so,
Mm.
you know, you have to filter.
You have to choose who you belong to, and
Yeah, yeah.
you have to choose who belongs to you.
Yes, yes,
And I think I'm finding that is a constant practice. Do you belong to me? Am I belonging to you? And it's a decision. It's a decision as to who to spend time with. And it's a
absolutely.
decision to spend who sometimes it's a decision to spend time with people who are difficult and hard and maybe have a different set of beliefs, but nevertheless, I find I grow because I can watch myself observing and my reactions to that. And I think that's all part of the belonging process.
Yes, yes. And because I think that when, that idea about your identity is always in relationship to another person, and it shifts. And when you come in contact with someone who is so different from you, it's that it's an opportunity for you to really look at yourself and kind of go, well, where do I stand? Who am
Yeah,
I? What do I want? And what, what's important to me?
yeah.
And yeah, it's hard at times, but there's an opportunity in it for sure.
So just last thoughts for our listeners on the topic of belonging from someone who has lived this life for decades and belonged to such a vibrant, multicultural, multilinguistic community.
I think that in the moments where I feel the saddest or the loneliest or that I don't belong, I realize that that's when I am paying the least amount of attention to myself and belonging to myself. And so then it's, it's doing the things that are important for me to feel like I am, belonging to myself. That is the most important. And then that makes me able to go out and have exchanges and experiences with other people because I'm centered and grounded in who I am, and
Yes.
not worried about what other people are thinking or perceiving me because everyone has
Thank
their own
you.
opinions. And honestly, most of the time they're more concerned about themselves than about,
Yeah.
than about who you are or what you're wearing or doing. So, don't worry about what other people think and just do your own thing. But I think in those moments when, I feel, I think because we all have that, we go somewhere and we feel sad and lost and frustrated. And I think then that's the red flag to go, okay, what am I
Mm.
doing for myself? How am I connecting with myself? Is it that I need to be journaling more? I need to be reading. I need to be going out and spending time in a pool or somewhere else that, makes you feel at home? Because that whole notion of home is such a huge topic, but it's that idea of feeling like you belong somewhere. And so what are you doing to help you feel like you belong even within your own body and your own, four walls that you're living in? Maybe you need, some other furniture, or you need a rug on the floor. I realized years ago there's like, oh, for me to feel like I'm really at home, I need a really big rug on the floor that I can lay down on. Because I grew up in a house with wooden floors, and we had this massive rug and in the living room, and I realized that was something that made me feel at home, and it made me feel, yeah, but like I belonged in that space. And
I love that. I just love that.
Me
So you
too.
heard it here on Nomadic Diaries. Megan, any reflections?
Well, Erin, I would just say you give yourself permission to make choices, and sometimes quote unquote strange choices that other people might think are strange, but to you it's really quite comes from a place of knowing this is what I need. And so I appreciate you sharing that, and also giving us permission to belong in multiple cities. I love how Normandy is your soul city, Brussels is your heartbeat city, and what would you say Austin is?
oh, I don't know, the pulse of youth.
Mm,
I love that.
a historical city, yeah.
It was where I needed to be at that time in my life, and it
Yeah,
was that,
Mm,
that
yeah.
pulse of being young and discovering new things. And I still feel that when I go there. It's just it kind of wears off after time, or I don't know. I feel like I need to be somewhere else. But I
Yeah,
love to
yeah.
visit. I absolutely love Austin.
I love the fact also that you wear so much Mexican clothing.
You like my so this is my Mexican shirt that I bought at the Mexican market in San Antonio.
Of course.
This
I
is
noticed when you went, I noticed since you came home on your last visit that you had a new wardrobe of Mexican clothing. And
I did. I
I
did.
I can identify with that, and I understand. And we've always had this deep, I think, heart connection, and so it's been wonderful to have you today. Thank you so much for your wisdom on the topic of belonging. This is Doreen Cumberford and Megan Norton Newbanks saying Masalama, sayonara, and hasta luego.
Ciao.
Thanks, Erin.